I loved the NASCAR season growing up because I knew that my dad would be in the living room all day, leaving me to watch whatever I wanted, unsupervised, in the back bedroom. Nothing raunchy or super inappropriate, but I always gravitated towards horror. This unsupervised TV time is how I found out about cryptids, because I would watch Lost tapes on Animal Planet whenever I got the chance. It was one of the most intriguing shows to me at such a young age. Lost tapes awakened in me a hyperfixation that would last well into my 30s. I fully believed that show, and that show alone, is the sole reason I find myself so enthralled with things like cryptozoology and urban legends. So, while I open up the latest MetaZoo box and compare the MSRP of the rare cards to what I paid for the box, I wanted to talk about some of my favorite cryptids and urban legends that are featured specifically in this set. Before we get into the juicy stuff, though, I just want to thank everyone who has subscribed thus far. There's not even 200 of you yet, but those of you who are here seem to be some of the coolest guys, gals, and non-binary pals out there. There have been so many kind words regarding the content on the channel, and it feels like monetization is right around the corner, despite the fact that there's not even 200 of you guys yet. So we're growing really quickly now and getting closer every day to the channel that can afford to pump out more content. So if you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe, or at least hit the like button and type some kind words below so the YouTube god that is the almighty algorithm will push the video to even more like-minded people. Now for something completely different. One of the cards featured in this new set is one of my all-time favorite urban legends, Polybius. In 1981, the arcade business was booming, and the method of quality assurance testing video games before release was more about crowdsourcing information. The arcades of Portland, Oregon were a hotspot for QA testing new games before they hit the market, so it was normal for black, labelless arcade cabinets with no artwork to show up overnight. One such night, a collection of black cabinets appeared that read Polybius. It quickly became popular around Portland as the mechanics were so addictive. Oftentimes, children would have to wait to play as men in suits would visit the arcades to open up the cabinets and collect data from the machine. Sometimes the men in suits would hang around and watch as the game was played by the children. And sometimes the game would periodically disappear and reappear as the same unknown men would take the game and later bring it back. Soon, children who played it reported becoming sick with seizures and hallucinations, and some children found themselves amnesia-stricken or would experience night terrors and something that seemed to be related to PTSD. In a few extreme cases, Polybius was linked to a number of children who had committed self-harm and even suicide. As the game was becoming more well-known as the haunted game, kids would now dare each other to play it. But the game was quickly pulled out of arcades for good by the previous mentioned Men in Black, and Polybius was never seen again. It was around the same time that the US government had first started testing the idea of using video games as training simulations for US soldiers. The year prior to Polybius, the US Army collaborated with Atari to create the Bradley Trainer. And in the decade just before, the public had been made aware of the MK Ultra experiments being carried out by the CIA for almost 2 decades. It's possible that this timeline of events, MK Ultra disclosures, the Bradley Trainer's development and delivery to the US Army, and then Polybius mysteriously showing up in the arcades, could be what led people to one of the more popular conspiracies surrounding the machine. It was believed that Polybius was possibly another egregious human experiment being carried out, one that tested the mental fortitude of the average person. Theoretically, this kind of experiment could deliver useful information on patterns in lights that could induce seizures at will, or the effects of long-term exposure to subliminal messaging. For a long while, it was thought to be a myth because there seemed to be no corroborating evidence, until a 2006 post on coinop.org. The post was made by a man named Stephen Roach. Stephen claimed to have previously worked for a company by the name of Sinislersion, or Sinislosion, some people pronounce it differently. He heavily detailed his involvement with the game, explained away the US government conspiracy theory, and provided a much more believable tale. In short, him and some buddies ran Sinislersion as a little startup where they made hardware. They were approached by a company with the idea for a game that would net the boys a pretty sweet compensation package. The game was made, delivered to Portland arcades for QA testing, but then one child in Portland had a seizure while playing the game. The parent company that had approached Cineslursion now had to settle a lawsuit, and the lawsuit resulted in them scrambling to remove the arcade cabinets. And that was that. That was the real story. Allegedly. So, a couple easily verifiable facts. Number one, Cineslursion can be translated from German as mind-wiping or mind-altering. So, a little on the nose, don't you think? And Polybius was, and I'm not making this one up, this is my favorite fun fact about this, Polybius was the name of a Greek philosopher who is credited as being one of the first real historians in human history, and was quoted as saying, "If history is deprived of the truth, we are left with nothing but an idle, unprofitable tale." So, do with that whatever you will. Oh, man. The next one that I want to talk about in the set is the Hatman card. But before discussing Hatman, I want to get one common misconception out of the way. Freddy Krueger was not inspired by the Hatman myth. Wes Craven explained in an interview on some DVD commentary that Freddy was actually inspired by a bully from his school during his youth, a disfigured homeless man who had frightened him when he was 12, and the 1970s pop song Dreamweaver by Gary Wright. So yeah, super disappointing. When I came up with that theory, I thought I was really onto something, and somebody was like, "Oh no, actually, Wes Craven disproved your little theory way before you came up with it, and it's on the DVD." So, whatever. Anyway, Hatman is still super cool. He's recognized as the most common version of a sleep paralysis demon in the modern era. Some people see bugs and insects, some people see actual demons, but most people see the Hatman. Hatman is interesting because so many people all over the world describe the same figure, about 6 feet tall, wears a black suit, and always wears the same hat. He completely transcends race, culture, and geographical location. If you didn't know, sleep paralysis is when your mind wakes up before your body. Your brain has this switch that turns off your ability to move while dreaming so that you don't hurt yourself by acting out your dreams. Sometimes people's eyes will open before the switch returns to its original position. For the few seconds the switch is off, you often continue to dream, resulting in hallucinations. Some people report the Hatman as someone who just watches them. Others report that he is sucking the breath or life out of them, quote unquote. Some say he puts pressure on their chest by sitting on them or forcing them down with his hands, and in some extreme cases, he has been reported to attack people. I have suffered from sleep paralysis at a few stressful junctions in my life. Constant stress is a common trigger for sleep paralysis. I never saw the Hatman though. Often I saw disembodied hands. They would be coming from under the bed that I slept on, coming out of the closet, and one time it looked like an entire arm gently wrapped around me. So, not to brag, but me and my sleep paralysis demon sometimes cuddle. But the worst time I saw a disembodied hand was one night in my old home. I had designed my room for maximum comfort by placing the bed against the window and my flat screen at the foot of my bed. I had a collection of pillows underneath the bed so that I could create a large, comfy chair when gaming or watching TV. One night, I was up kind of late and watching anime, I think Serial Experiments Lain. I just remember it was like something scary. I was working a really crap job at the time, and I was always angry, so sleep paralysis happened pretty often at this time in my life. On this particular night, I must have fell asleep with my eyes open because a hand came in through my window and made motions in front of my face, like it did a little dancey dance. It was in like 4K, Ultra HD, like I cannot stress how incredibly ultra realistic this hand looked. It triggered my fight or flight and I lunged at the arm, ready to grab it, but it disappeared. I knew it was my sleep paralysis, but my adrenaline had already started pumping. I could not get to sleep that night because I was so wired afterwards. An estimated 40% of all humans will experience sleep paralysis in their lifetime. So, if you haven't met the Hatman or the disembodied hands yet, you still might. Okay, the next one I'm going to talk about, I'm not going to spend too much time on because Ash and Elena made an episode of the Morbid podcast that absolutely killed this topic, the Flatwoods Monster. There is literally no reason for anyone on the internet to talk about the Flatwoods Monster anymore because that Morbid episode is the definitive piece of content surrounding this creature. I highly recommend that you go check it out, even if you're just the least bit interested in cryptids or aliens. But I'll give you the TLDR. On September 12th in 1952, 3 boys, Edward and Fred May, and their friend Tommy Hare, I think is how it's pronounced, say they saw a red object pass through the sky and land in a nearby farm property around 7:15 p.m. The boys ran to tell Ed and Fred's mom, Kathleen. Kathleen agreed to help the boys investigate because what reasonable parent would just let their children investigate the crash site of Lord knows what? And along the way, a few other boys from the neighborhood joined them, one of which was accompanied by a dog. All tagged along. One of them was 17-year-old Gene Lemon, who was a National Guard member. And he accompanied the group, but also led them as soon as they got into the woods. Once in the woods, Lemon saw a, quote, 10-foot monster with a blood-red body and a green face that seemed to glow. The monster was also surrounded by a dense mist that made the party nauseous. The story got picked up by almost every major radio station and newspaper in the US that year and became one of the biggest stories. So seriously, go check out the Morbid episode about this fun little guy. It's really worth your time. The next one is another one I'm not going to spend too much time on because who doesn't know about the Greys? These guys are like aliens and cryptids 101. But here are some cool facts that you probably didn't know. The first ever description resembling a modern Grey can be found in the 1891 novel Meta, A Tale of the Future, written and published by Kenneth Follingsby. In the book, the narrator of the book passes out due to overworking himself and then just wakes up in the year 5575. In the book, he encounters aliens who are small, gray-skinned, and have, quote, large balloon-shaped heads. Another popular description was written by H.G. Wells, who you'll recognize as the author of War of the Worlds and The Invisible Man, in his 1893 short story, Man of the Year Million. He describes future humans kind of like Greys, bald, no mouth or nose, and large heads. He then later described a race of future humans that he called the Aeoli in his book The Time Machine, and they were described in a similar manner. But I think my favorite early description of a gray alien, predating Roswell and all that, comes from one of the most interesting men you've never heard of, Aleister Crowley. Aleister was a writer, poet, painter, a freaking mountaineer, an occultist, and whatever the hell a ceremonial magician is. He's most well known for founding the religion of Thelema, and I could write a whole book on this guy, but I don't want to get too off topic. We're talking about the Greys. We're talking about aliens. So, in 1917, Aleister and his girlfriend at the time conducted a ritual that they referred to as, and I'm probably going to butcher this, Amalantra workings, which was supposed to be this kind of like meditation or like magical ceremony that allowed you to talk to aliens. And during this ritual, they claimed to come in contact with a preternatural entity, alien, named Lamb. Crowley made a drawing of what Lamb looked like if you want to go look it up, but I just also want to put out that it's kind of weird that he made a drawing of it because Crowley also described Lamb as being incomprehensible to the human mind. So, pretty sure, not certain, but pretty sure Aleister could be lying. But other UFOologists have also claimed to have met Lamb, and in one way or another, they claim that he's linked to several famous sightings of gray aliens. Also, before you go thinking that conducting a magical ritual to talk to aliens with your lover is a fun date idea, it probs isn't. Aleister and his honey broke up soon after. That was probably Lamb's fault too. One last thing I want to discuss, because it's cool and also I have so much space to fill in this video, is another cool alien fun fact. It's not Grey specific, but I don't think I'll ever get the chance to discuss this on the channel ever again. So, in 1630, John Winthrop led a wave of Puritans from England to establish the second major settlement in New England known as the Massachusetts Bay Colony, and he would serve as the governor for the first 12 years following its founding. As he and the other Puritans began to settle in America, John Winthrop kept a diary and recorded the colony's growth. While most of it is just boring U.S. history, there is one particular entry that many credit as the first ever UFO sighting in recorded United States history. On March 1st of 1693, John Winthrop recounted in his diary a strange event that was reported by James Everell and two other men whose names seem to have been forgotten by history, possibly because John Winthrop doesn't mention their names in his entry. John Winthrop starts by explaining that James Everell was a sober, very important detail for a story like this, discreet man. James and his two buddies were rowing on the muddy river at night when they saw bright lights in the sky. Over the course of about 3 hours, the men say that the light darted back and forth between them and the village of Charlestown. When it stood still, it was about, quote, 3 square yards large. And, this part is weird, when it ran, contracted the form of a swine. So basically, a giant light-up space pig, I guess. This is exactly why John Winthrop led with the details of James's sobriety. Like, I promise, this guy doesn't drink, he doesn't use anything, he was sober. So anyway, this next part is my favorite. James and his buddies reported that when the magical space pig disappeared, it had faded away, and the squad was now a mile upstream, not downstream. The 3 men had no recollection of rowing against the current, so it's possible that they lost time. If you know anything about modern American alien abduction stories, then you know that losing time is a very common trope among them. Because of this, some UFOologists believe that John Winthrop didn't only record the first UFO sighting in written American history, but possibly the first abduction as well. And while I don't believe in aliens in this manner, I do find these things interesting and fun to discuss. If you believe in aliens, argue with me in the comments. I'm really looking to get my engagement up. So moving on to the Charles Mill Lake Monster. So on March 28, 1959, in Mansfield, Ohio, 3 teenage boys, Denny Patterson, Wayne Armstrong, and Michael Lane, were hanging out near the Charles Mill Lake, which I think is just called the Mill Lake, but I'm just calling it the Charles Mill Lake, so don't at me in the comments. Or do. I'm trying to get the engagement up. So anyway, they were hanging out near Charles Mill Lake when they claimed to see a 7-foot-tall, armless amphibian with glowing green eyes and large webbed feet rose from the lake almost directly in front of them. Immediately, out of fear, the 3 boys ran to the police station to report what they saw. The police investigated the scene and found no such monster, but they did find a collection of tracks that, and a quote, resembled the foot gears worn by skin divers. There probably were never any more sightings of the Charles Mill Lake Monster, and I say probably because many people believe that the Charles Mill Lake Monster is also another cryptid known as Orange Eyes from the same area. So Orange Eyes has significantly less information, and while all the info you can find tells the same stories or similar stories or pieces of the same story, there's no names, no police reports filed, and a lot of it just seems to be speculation. So take all this with a grain of salt, as you will take this whole video with a grain of salt. Allegedly, in 1963, several teenagers sighted Orange Eyes over in the Lover's Lane area near Charles Mill Lake. The teens reported that it was 11 feet tall and possibly 1,000 pounds. They also defined it as hairy, not amphibious, and confirmed that it did have arms. So anyway, after escaping from the initial encounter, the terrified teens gathered up an armed posse to hunt the beast down. Details are vague, so it isn't clear if the posse included adults with guns or just other teens who were, obviously studying the Bible at Lover's Lane. What else would you do over there? Some info surrounding the monster will tell you this is for sure how it happened, but again, I can't track down any sources, and sources are never listed. However, one thing everyone seems to agree on is that Orange Eyes could have been living in the sewers. Prior to both sightings of Orange Eyes and the Charles Mill Lake Monster, construction on a highway was going on in the same area, which possibly resulted in the sort of destruction of sewer tunnels near the lake. The final sighting was in 1991 when a couple fishermen, both chose to remain anonymous, claimed to have seen the same creature described as Orange Eyes. The 2 men claimed that the 11-foot beast ran past them into the woods, and that is it. That is their whole story. So that's it for the Charles Mills Lake Monster. Honestly, super interesting though. I kind of like him. I didn't know about him before this video, and I think he's kind of neat. Another one that I like from this set is the Rugarou. So the Rugarou isn't a cryptid, but instead a piece of Cajun folklore hailing from New Orleans, Louisiana. Many people refer to it as the Cajun werewolf. It's speculated that the Rugarou folklore evolved from the French folklore of the loup-garou, which is a French, Canadian, and European werewolf. The story of the loup-garou was passed down orally from generation to generation, and French settlers in New Orleans would retell the tales, eventually becoming the Cajun Rugarou. The Rugarou is mostly recognized as one of those cautionary monsters that only exists to scare children into certain behaviors. The story was commonly passed down from Cajun adults to their children as a way to inspire obedience. Things like not traveling too far into the woods or going out when it's too late. Otherwise, the Rugarou will get ya. Likewise, the loup-garou served the same purpose in French Catholicism. One of the most famous loup-garou tales states that breaking Catholic Lent for 7 years in a row will turn you into a loup-garou. And in French-Canadian Christian folklore, the loup-garou is a cursed man who sinned so much that he would unwillingly turn into the beast every night for 101 days, cursed to roam the countryside in werewolf form. One neat fact related to the Rugarou: the New Orleans Hornets, now the New Orleans Pelicans, once filed for a trademark to become the New Orleans Rugarous. That would have been way cooler than the Pelicans. I don't know who made that decision, but you really dropped the ball there. The final card in the set that I want to talk about is the Kodiak Dinosaur. But before I talk about the Kodiak Dinosaur, I had never heard about this one prior to writing the video, so I had to do some research, and in my research, I found an awesome song from an awesome band. If you're a fan of swancore style music or the band who invented it, Dance Gavin Dance, I highly recommend checking out Galleons and their song Downtown Dinosaur Gang from their 2015 EP, Kodiak Soul. It is currently sitting at a criminal 629 views, so please help me change that and check out their newer stuff too. They released an album last year, and it's super good. So anyway, there's a ton of information surrounding the Kodiak dinosaur, and the only evidence of it possibly being a dinosaur is that it was big. That's it. So the Kodiak dinosaur was spotted, and I'm using this term lightly, in 1969 by the Mylark shrimping boat off the coast of Alaska in the Chillicothe Strait. I think I'm pronouncing that right. The shrimping boat was equipped with, at the time, some of the best sonar that the late 1960s had to offer. One day, the crew went out to catch shrimp, and on the sonar, they noticed a large blip on the radar, 300 feet below the surface. When doing research on the topic, the blip ranges from anywhere around 130 to 200 feet long. There's a picture of the sonar recording, sometimes referred to as an echogram, that looks pretty convincing. But real quick, let's talk about how sonar works, because it's basically echolocation. Why is that important, you may ask? Well, something you may not know about the Loch Ness Monster, which is similar because it's kind of like the same kind of cryptid, just in a different area, is one of the largest pieces of debunking evidence, the surroundings. Many skeptics believe that Nessie, as it appears on sonar, looked to be the sonar reading its own wavelengths as they traveled back from hitting the sides and rocky bottom of the Loch Ness. Even changes in water temperature can cause readings that look like animals. Some scientists and skeptics would argue that sonar is an unreliable tool when trying to prove the existence of an underwater dinosaur. But also remember that cryptozoology has proven the existence of many things that were thought to be fake, like Komodo dragons, the okapi, and even the giant squid were all thought to be hoaxes and urban legends at one point. And sometimes cryptids do exist, just not in the way we imagine them, like finding out the chupacabra was a diseased fox and the jackalope was a rabbit with some kind of calcium tumor condition on its head. So who knows? Maybe the plesiosaur creatures being spotted everywhere are just severely endangered species that never really went extinct. The Kodiak dino has allegedly been spotted several more times since the initial sighting, and the Kodiak Museum actually has a pretty in-depth article on the sightings of the originals, if you're interested. So it's called Here There Be Dragons, Sea Monsters of Kodiak Island, and it's a pretty fun read. I actually really enjoyed reading through it while researching for this video. And that's it for the scripted portion of the video. Yeah, if you're a MetaZoo fan, we started doing this. We started doing this on my Dragon Ball video, my latest Dragon Ball Super video, where I just kind of talked about my experience where I went to the gym when I was like younger. I still go to the gym now every day. Definitely go watch it. It became like one of the most viewed, one of the most highly engaged videos on the channel, seemingly like overnight. And I think raked us in a ton of new subscribers. So expect some more Dragon Ball in the future. But, you know, if you're only here for the MetaZoo stuff, I'm not saying that you have to go watch it, but I would really appreciate if you checked it out, because that was actually the first video where we kind of like A/B tested this new format, where instead of like live reacting to the cards, I kind of like write a small little video essay about something related. I think the Digimon videos are going to serve more as like an A/B test for like different topics, and then also we are still doing live reactions. Also, we just came out with our first Pokemon video on the channel. Some of you really wanted me to start doing Pokemon, so I went ahead and got 2 of the trainers' toolkits, and I got a new Pokemon card folio that I showed off not too long ago. So definitely go check that out as well, because if that video can't get over 200 views, then we're probably, like, we're still gonna do Pokemon, especially because like I want to do Evolving Skies. I want to do an episode of Can You Make Your Money Back of Evolving Skies, but it's gonna be like sporadic. It's not gonna be like on a schedule. You know how we try to do like a Dragon Ball and a Digimon video at least once a month. It's just that, you know, we're not monetized just yet, so I'm having to dip into my own funds, and it's already really expensive to cycle through 3 trading card games. Again, I like doing it, so I'm not like saying like, oh, woe is me. I'm making this decision. I'm choosing to spend my money in this way, and I'm not like a huge fan of Pokemon cards just because I don't play the game. But yeah, if any of you want to see some more Pokemon on the channel, be sure to go back to that video and just hit the like button, give it a view. But yeah, that's pretty much it. This channel is it's growing a lot faster now. Ooh, sorry if you heard me burp, unless you're into that thing, in which case you're welcome. Yeah, ever since we like hit that 100 sub mark, which I think took about 6 months, we're now growing like super rapidly. Like I think we're getting somewhere around like 10 to 20 subscribers per week now. So hopefully we can keep up that momentum. Be sure to like and subscribe if you want to see more MetaZoo videos. And I also just want to mention that looking at the stats, it seems like we have a huge collection of returning viewers who aren't subscribed. So if you are one of those, I would really, really appreciate it if you hit the subscribe button. It would really help the channel out. Or if you don't want to do that, just go ahead and hit the like button and leave a nice comment down below. So like I said at the beginning of the video, the YouTube algorithm will kind of like push this to some people who would like to subscribe, because the sooner I get monetized, the sooner I can start pumping out more videos for you guys with like MetaZoo, and we can also start maybe including Yu-Gi-Oh. That's a plan for the future. There's a ton of Yu-Gi-Oh products that I want to include, but anyway, yeah, that's it for this video. I'm really trying to kill some time so that you guys aren't just like watching me unbox stuff and listen to this very calming music that I like. So, but that's it. That's the end of the video. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Again, be sure to like and subscribe, or just, you know, press some buttons here and there to help me get to people who will subscribe. And if you want to see some more MetaZoo content, be sure to let me know down below if there's a specific box that you want me to open that is not the first edition, which is thousands of dollars. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.